So I'll give the introduction. So a warm welcome to one and all to the first Saturday Club of 2023. The Saturday Club is a interdisciplinary group of researchers working on various health research ideas. As a part of AYUSH Center of Excellence activity, the group meets on first Saturday of every month to discuss the ideas, various ideas, thoughts, and study protocol. So the topic for today's Saturday Club is a wonder that is a human heart. So as we all know, heart is the symbol of kindness and love. So, but it is a great mystery for science. Our heart works continuously without any break to keep us alive. So there are many things that we know about our heart, but some interesting facts that today sir is going to tell us about the heart. So the speaker of today's Saturday Club is Dr. Brigadier R.S. Rajan. Rajan sir is a retired brigadier from Army Medical Corps. After heading the Department of Cardio-thoracic Surgery at Armed Forces Medical College, he trained cardiothoracic surgeons of Army, Navy, and Air Forces for over 14 years. He is known for his passion for teaching for graduates and undergraduates. He is engaged in community health services for over last 20 years. And recently, sir has been mentoring our team for last couple of months. His enthusiasm in Ayurveda and integrative medicine helps us to drive our thoughts. So welcome, sir. I'll hand over the session to you now.
Thank you. Do I need this? Oh, I see. Okay, all right. Can you hear me? No? Is that better? Thank you very much for this honor of the first lecture of the 2023 Saturday Club. And it's going to be a very interesting topic, I hope. I find it interesting. I have been studying the human heart for the last 60 years, from the time I was 17 or 18 when I entered medical college, and till now. And I find it very interesting. She said we already know a lot about heart. I still don't know much about heart because there is still a lot more to learn. Okay, so, and as some of our rishis would say, the more we reveal, the more truths are found behind the wheel. As you keep removing one wheel, there is another wheel, another wheel, another wheel. So it never ends. Whether it is astronomy or medicine or physics or chemistry or any field you take, you can't say we have reached now the ultimate and there is nothing more here. It's just in our pocket. No. No field of knowledge can claim that. With that humble statement, I would like to start with how the heart is holding a central place in our daily conversation. Right now we are light-hearted, I hope. Sometimes we have a heavy heart. We have warm-hearted friends. We had cold-hearted enemies. We have people with a lion's heart, like some of the kings. One of the kings in England was called the Lionheart, Richard Coeur de Lion, because he was called Richard the Lionhearted. And you have chicken-hearted people also. So the heart has been in the center of our conversation. We say heartiest congratulations. We say heartfelt condolences. So everywhere the heart comes in. So A lot of people, please put all your cell phones in the silent mode so that we are not disturbed, others are not disturbed. So we have also the poets who have taken a lot to their heart about the heart. And you have Shakespeare saying that the king was one who had a heart of gold. I think he was talking about Henry V. And then he uses the heart in so many ways and so many occasions. He said, the light heart lives longer. A very deep statement, meaning that if you have a light-hearted approach to life, you are likely to delay your heart attack. That's what Shakespeare meant. Shakespeare was a great observer of humanity, and so he could say such things. Other poets have not been far behind. Milton said, for instance, that wealth is not of the hand, but of the heart. Which much the same thing Lord Buddha also has said. It is the heart which gives you that contentment that you are wealthy enough, and so on. And Tennyson said, I'm as strong as 10 men because my heart is pure. That means a pure-hearted person like Mahatma Gandhi can command so much strength which other people cannot even imagine. Our own poet Kalidasa has written a lot about heart. He says, heart bursting with love and all that. So having heard so much about the heart, how many of you agree with the statement that the heart is the most important organ in the body? Please raise your hands. You don't agree? I didn't see your hand go. Anybody disagree? Tell me why you disagree. I like your answer. On the other hand, there were metabolic, we all know how I agree with you partly, but the reason I was expecting is something else. The most important organ in the body is the human brain. The heart is a servant of the brain. Because if the brain is dead and the heart is functioning, such situations occur. You all are aware, person gets into a road accident, the head is knocked off, his brain is dead, but with the doctor's efforts or by nature's grace, his heart is still continuing to function. Such a person, the heart is working, but the brain is dead. Is that person alive or dead? For legal purposes, he is dead. Even for physiological purposes, he is dead. Of course, the definition of death is a very big subject, but basically, brain death is equal to death. Let's look at it another way. Suppose I do, or let me take my own case. So suppose they do a heart transplant on me. They have taken somebody's heart and put it into me because my heart is no good. Happening nowadays. In Pune also, every month 2 or 3 happen. All over the world, thousands are happening. After that operation, do I change? Do I become a different person? Yes or no? No, I still remain the same person. But suppose today's technology doesn't permit. But suppose tomorrow a day will come when we are able to transplant brains. Somebody's whole body is useless, but brain is still functioning, like Stephen Hawking. You know, you could barely talk, but his brain was still very alert and functioning. Suppose you transplant his brain to another person. Will that person be the same, or he will become Stephen Hawking? What do you think? Pardon? Stephen Hawking, because we are what our brain is. In fact, it is not an exaggeration to say the whole body is but a transporting system for the brain. You are what your brain is. You are not what your heart is. So the brain is the most important, most demanding, most avaricious. I'll explain to you in a short while why I say that organ, which commands all other organs in the body. The other organs are there for that. In fact, the heart is not only the servant of the brain, it's the servant of the whole body. As far as doctors are concerned, physiologists are concerned, the heart is a servant. Its job is that of a simple pump. It is a muscular pump which pumps blood to all parts of the body to supply blood. And through blood, it supplies oxygen, most important, glucose, and 100 other things, which are less in quantity, but often quite important. So the basic concept here is that the heart is a servant. As we go along, you will see how many lessons we can learn from the heart. Let us look at the first lesson. I said the heart is a servant. And this servant has become so important. The servant has become so important. Why? Because without that servant, the body cannot function. So if you want to become important in an organization, learn to serve. The more you serve, the more you contribute, the more valued you will be. That is the first lesson I learned from my little study of the heart. The second thing is, the heart has got, as you already mentioned in the introduction, has got this continuous ability to work. It works for, I think, no, I'll try and stay here. I know it'll be a problem otherwise. Please adjust it so that and give me a warning if I'm moving it. So continuously working. And it'll be very interesting for us to do a little bit of arithmetic. Doctors are not good in arithmetic, but arithmetic. The normal heart, human heart beats about 70 times a minute. But then biology is not mathematics or engineering. So if somebody's heart rate is 72, it is not abnormal. If it is 68, it's not abnormal. We give a range of 60 to 90. The 70 per minute means in an hour, it is 4,200 beats. And let's say for rounding off, we'll make it 4,000. And in a day, there are 24 hours. But again, for rounding off, let's make it 25. I hope you don't have a violent objection to that. So 25 into 4,000 is 100,000 beats. 100,000 beats per day. Per day. So in a year, 365 into 100,000. In 10 years, 3,650 into 100,000. And in 30 years, it comes to 1 billion. You can do the arithmetic, it's not very difficult. 3 years, approximately 1,000 days, more than 1,000 days. 30 years is 10,000 days. 10,000 days into 1 lakh is 1 billion. 1 billion is this much, 100 crores. A lot of ladies, so I won't ask how many of you have finished 30 years of your life. But those of you who have finished 30 years of your life, your heart has already beaten 1 billion times. And a chap like me, 2.5 billion times already and still counting. Okay? The beauty of this is, it doesn't keep saying. We publish one scientific paper and go around the whole department saying, my paper, my paper. 1 billion heartbeats. Never complained, never advertised, never took casual leave, never took earned leave, never asked for anything. Such a quiet servant. Isn't there a lesson for all of us to learn? That, your contribution speaks for itself. You don't have to speak for yourself. That is the second lesson we can learn from the heart. And how does then it works tirelessly? It's a very interesting question. This again, there is a lesson for us to learn. The heart beats. Incidentally, the heart weighs only 1/4 of a kilo, the size of a fist. That's it. And it does this. I'll challenge any engineer to produce a pulsatile pump, not a rotary pump. This is a pulsatile pump which can function for 1 billion times without requiring maintenance. Can you think of any such mechanical gadget which works 1 billion times without requiring maintenance? 2 billion times, 3 billion times if you're 90 years old. That is the beauty, that is the wonder, that is the human heart. And you will find that this 70, just an interesting bit of information to share with you. The 70 is in the human beings. How much you think it will be in an elephant? Anybody? How much? How much? 50? Why did you say you're such a big animal? No, I didn't get you. Smaller the animal, higher the heart rate. A mouse has a heart rate of 200. A cat has got a heart rate of 150. An elephant has got a heart rate of about 50, as you said. And a whale, blue whale, which weighs hundreds of tons, has a heart rate of 30. 30. How it manages to, supply blood to such a huge animal with 30 beats a minute, if that doesn't make you wonder, I don't know what will make you wonder. It's amazing that, blood can be supplied to such a huge animal. That animal will be as big as this ball. And the heart beats 30 times and supplies blood to every corner. That's another beauty. This heartbeat supplies blood to every nook and corner of the body. There's hardly anything except a few things like the cornea and some cartilage. These are the things which do not require blood supply. They get their oxygen in other ways, and all others require blood supply. The whole body has got to get blood supply. And how much blood does it supply? That's another interesting question, because each beat, we call it the stroke output, each beat again produces 70, pumps out 70 ml of blood, each beat. It beats 70 times, so approximately, instead of 75, so it becomes 4,900. Let us not quarrel, make it 5,000. That means 5 liters. 5 liters per minute. So in an hour, 300 liters. In 24 hours, 7,200 liters. This small quarter kilo pump is pumping 7,200 liters of blood every hour. You know how much is 7,200 liters? You've seen these big oil drums? Each oil drum is 200 liters. 36 oil drums. You'll have to fill up half of this hall with 36 oil drums. As much blood as you find in 36 oil drums is pumped by this heart in 1 hour. How is it possible? We cannot hold 7,200 liters of blood. And how does it manage to pump? Yes? It's a circulation. That's why we have a closed system. That is the economy of the body. If it were an open system, for example, some of the squids have an open system. You know, water comes in from one side and is pushed out to the other side. So it's constantly new water coming in, new water. Here, nature has conserved. And so we are managing with 5 liters. 5 liters is your total circulating blood volume. And this 5 liter circulating, keeps circulating. Imagine a garden where you have to pump out 300 liters every minute or 7,200 liters. Sorry, I think there's some mistake there. 300 liters in 1 hour and 7,200 liters in, let's say, can you imagine the logistics involved of watering a garden which requires 7,200? But that job is done by 5 liters because of the economy of the structure and function of the heart and the circulatory system. It's a little more complicated. I talked about the heart beating at 70, in some animals at 30, in other animals at 200. In your own case, the heart beats sometimes very fast. When you're called by your boss to his office, your heart starts beating fast. When you're meeting somebody whom you like very much, your heart starts beating fast. When there is a Vavavosi examination, your heart starts beating. You get a nightmare. How does it happen? This is completely beyond our control. Why such situations? Take a very healthy situation. You're running to catch a bus or you're playing a game. Your heart starts beating faster. The point I want to make here is, again, very interesting, that you don't have to turn a button. Now I'm going to run. Please increase the heart. Happens automatically. It is flexible and it moves according to the requirement. In your deep sleep, the heart rate comes down. In your deep sleep, the amount of blood which is pumped also comes down. See, I told you 5 liters is the total circulating volume and 5 liters is the output every minute from the heart. And in a trained athlete, it can go up to 15 liters. A trained athlete requires a sudden spurt of activity, and that sudden spurt of activity requires a sudden spurt in the oxygen consumption, and that sudden spurt in the oxygen consumption has to be provided by increased blood flow, and increased blood flow has to come by 2 ways. One is increase in the rate. And second is increase in the contractile force. Instead of 70 ml, it can throw up 130 ml, 1.5 times. And the rate can go up from 70 to as much as 140, 150. If you go for a treadmill test, they keep a target heart rate. And the target heart rate is to push your heart to its limit to see whether it is coping with the requirement. While on that subject, it's also very interesting to know that a trained athlete or a person who exercises regularly, what happens to his heart rate? It decreases. Very good. It decreases. So I joke with my patients that if you bring down your heart rate with exercise, you will live longer because God has sent you with a certain number of heartbeats. So if you have less heartbeat every minute, your life will be longer. From 70, you bring it down to 60. So your life will be longer by 10% easily, or more than 10%. Okay, 14%. See, so that is another important thing that we must know, that by training, our heart can meet the requirement with a slower rate. And it applies to us also. If you work hard at something, you become more efficient. And if you become more efficient, you can achieve the same result with less effort. That's what the heart is doing. Okay. Now I talk to you about how does it start beating? Yes? Say again, your.
Warm up.
Pardon?
Warm up.
How does the heart start beating? Who gives the chavi? We take it for granted, no? Nobody has ever bothered how my heart started beating. It beats. Must be beating. We take it for granted, no? Must be beating. Are you aware right now? No. So, how it starts, it has got an automaticity. I'll talk a little more in detail a little later, but basically, the heart is an automatic contractile tissue. For example, if you grow the heart cell in tissue culture, after some time they start beating. There is nothing to expel, they are just a mass of cells, but still they start beating because they have that contractility as their nature. And added to that is a pacemaker, which we'll talk about later, our own pacemaker, which starts and produces by electrical impulse. The heart is activated every time it beats. And when does it start beating? When we take the first breath, when we take the first step, when we take the first meal of our mother's milk, when does it start beating? It starts beating 4 months before you're born. You're supposed to spend 9 months in your mother's womb. From the 5th month, you can see the heart. And it's beating. No chavi, no stimulus, no reminder, it starts beating. And that automaticity continues till you die. What an innings. What a fantastic inning. You know, it's really a wonderful system. So how does it manage to do this? It's very interesting because the heart has got 2 portions, 4 chambers, 2 upper chambers and 2 lower chambers. These chambers beat, relax, beat, relax. When they beat, they throw out 70 ml of blood. And when they relax, they collect 70 ml of blood. And if you're running a race, then a bit faster, and push out a lot of blood, and push in, bring in a lot of blood. Remember, it's a circulation. No, now the ventricles are busy pushing out blood. I cannot bring blood now. Means the circulation will stop. So equally important is the inflow as the outflow, the input as the output. So that is adjusted very finely. But look more closely. These two atria are beating and those two ventricles are beating. They are not beating together. They beat one after the other. And the beauty of it is, this beats a little longer, and then both are quiet for some time. We call it the quiescent period of the heart. So about 0.8 seconds is the duration of the cardiac cycle. If you divide 60 seconds by 0.8, you'll get 72 or something like that. Now, out of that, you find that 0.1 second the atria contract, 0.3 seconds the ventricles contract. It doesn't take that long. It moves very fast. And 0.4 seconds, both chambers are quiet. They are receiving blood. They're not active. They are actively relaxing so that they can receive blood. I think some of you may be interested. I'll talk about that a little later, but try to understand this. So this quiescent period of the heart is nearly half the beat. So that is the trick. The trick is that it takes rest while working. What a beautiful concept. In every beat, half a beat work, half a beat rest. Half a beat work, half a beat rest. Half a beat work, half a beat rest. So it can carry on. We are the only stupid people. We keep on flogging ourselves without a break. So that's another lesson you have to learn from the heart, that you must learn how to relax in your work, in between your work, without losing the momentum. You cannot say, now I'm relaxing. The next beat is ready. So you have to beat. So you have to work at the same time. You have to seize moments of rest. That is how the heart is self-propelling, I told you. It doesn't need an external stimulus. The heart is indefatigable. The heart is resting en passant. While in transit, it rests. It doesn't ask for special time. No, abhi 1 ghanta chutti chahiye. No. It has to take rest while it is working. That is the beauty of it. And if you have to have extra demand, it meets with that extra demand. Like I told you, an athlete or a tennis player, or even you catching a bus. You want to run and your heart output, your oxygen demand is more, the heart has to work harder at that time. It does not say, no. As per our contract, I am supposed to produce only 5 liters. Now you are wanting me 10 liters. Sorry. Overtime lagega. Extra pay dena padega. This is another thing we have to learn. When there is increased demand in our organization, cope with it. Don't crib. See, that is how an uncribbing, self-propelled, indefatigable servant, this is basically a servant, a pump which is supplying blood, became so important. Became so important because the character of the work that person is doing. Not only the importance of the work, but the way it is done is what we have to appreciate. That is why I say the wonder that is the human heart. It is really a great wonder. There is many more. I can't go into that in great detail right now. So As far as the heart rate and cardiac output is concerned, there are two more things about cardiac output. That means the output of blood every beat, which we have to, which will interest you. We have two circulations. Our high school has taught us that: the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. The systemic circulation is starting in the left ventricle. The left ventricle pumps the blood. Let me draw a picture after having all these colored pens here. I'll first make a diagrammatic heart, which won't look anything like what is in the human body. The upper chamber is called atrium. The lower chamber is called ventricle. I have made it ulta, but I'll tell you why I have made it ulta so that it's easy for us to understand. And the main artery which comes out of the left ventricle is the aorta. And the main artery which comes out of the right ventricle is the pulmonary artery. And the right atrium receives blood from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava from the upper half of the body, inferior vena cava from the lower half. And the left atrium receives blood from the pulmonary veins. Our high school teachers taught us this. There are 4 pulmonary veins. So circulation goes on merrily. Blood from the left ventricle ejected through the aorta reaches all parts of the body. All parts of the body. How much? We'll talk about it. And then it comes back after giving up the oxygen, collecting the carbon dioxide, and whatever other muck that the tissues produce. All this is brought to the right atrium through the superior inferior vena cava and through to the right ventricle, to the pulmonary artery, which goes to the lungs. And in the lungs, deoxygenated blood enters and oxygenated blood emerges. And that oxygenated blood comes here. And it goes to the left atrium, and through the left ventricle, it goes to the aorta, and from the aorta, it reaches all parts of the body and loses its oxygen and comes back deoxygenated and reaches the LVC and IVC. So this is the system of double circulation. I call it double circulation because in the fish, it's a very simple system. The fish, as you know, gets its oxygen through gills. So if this is the fish, pardon my art, and you find that heart is here and the gills are here. So the heart just pumps the blood forward through the gills. And after going through the gills in the capillaries and all, picks up the oxygen from the surrounding water. You see the fish keeps on doing this because that's pushing the water through the gills. And that oxygen is picked up by the gills and the oxygenated blood comes back through the blood vessels. I'm calling it blood vessels because there's not clearly artery and vein there. And that picks up, gives oxygen, picks up carbon dioxide all along the way, comes back here. And there is only one pumping chamber. That pumps and that pushes it through the gills and it comes back. Our system is much more complicated. That's why it is complicated with a reason, very interesting reason. It's complicated because we have lungs instead of gills. Why should we have lungs? Why not we also manage with gills? You and I are standing and talking here because of the lungs. Otherwise, we will be restricted to a waterborne existence. You cannot get out of the water. Life got out of the water with the help of lungs. All life originated in water, but we became terrestrial. And to become terrestrial, you need lungs. And something which can live between the water and the land, like the frog, the toad, the amphibians, they have lungs, but they can also breathe through their skin. They can live in the water, they can live in the land. But reptiles, birds, mammals, we have to depend on our lungs for this. And because of the lung, there's complicated arrangement. The circulation is there. So when I said left ventricle throws out 70 ml of blood, how much should the right ventricle throw? What fraction should be thrown out by the 70 ml is by the left ventricle? Yes? Who said that? Very good. 70. Just imagine, which we don't imagine normally, the left ventricle is throwing out 70 ml. The right ventricle is throwing out only 60 ml. 10 ml backlog. Where does that backlog go? It goes into our system. And what happens? In 1 minute, 700 ml extra. In 1 hour, 4 or 5 liters extra. No, it has to be delicately balanced, the ml to ml. Again, no wonder. So if this becomes 75, this becomes 70. If this becomes 100, this becomes 100. This becomes 120 because you are running a race. This becomes 120. And not only that, it is to coordinate with the lung. Imagine, blood is coming into the lung through the pulmonary artery into the lungs, and air is coming from your nose and mouth to the lungs. Okay, now there should be a match. There cannot be a mismatch. If there is more air, less blood, less oxygen. If there is more blood, less oxygen, again less oxygen. Because the amount of oxygen available and the amount of blood available to absorb that oxygen and take it to the left side of the heart should be proportionate. If there is an imbalance. So there are two balances here. One is the right and left ventricle should balance. Other is the lungs and the right ventricle should balance. And another beauty is the right ventricle functions at a very low pressure. 40. The left ventricle functions at a pressure of 120. Imagine this pump. This is the atrium, this is the ventricle. And this has got two ventricles. And right and left ventricle are together. They're contracting together. One at 40 millimeters mercury, other at 120 millimeters mercury. And they're separated only by a wall. This side of the wall, deoxygenated blood, low pressure. This side of the wall, oxygenated blood, high pressure, because it has to travel far. Whereas the right side, it has to travel only to the lungs. Heart is here, the lungs are here. So the pressure required is low. If this pressure is high, there is havoc because the lung will receive blood at a very high pressure. If this pressure is low, havoc again because your lower limbs, your extremities will not get the pressure. So these have to be balanced. And all this is done automatically. We take it for granted. Our heart functions and it meets our requirements, and all this complicated things are going on automatically. Automatically. That's the beauty of the heart. I talked about one more thing called compliance. Now you see, when the ventricle squeezes blood out and then relaxes to receive blood. Any student of physics here? Compliance is the ability to accept an increase in the volume without an increase in pressure. That means, suppose there is a small container which can hold 1 liter. I put 2 liters into it, the pressure will increase. But in the ventricle, when it is receiving more blood, the pressure should not go up. So it actively relaxes. That's called compliance. In other words, it accepts extra volume without an increase in pressure. This is compliant. And the more compliant the ventricles are, the more efficient is your heart. This is what cardiologists tell you. Again, there is a lesson. The lesson is how compliant we are. When there is a little extra load, does our pressure go up? That means your compliance needs to be improved. Your compliance needs to be improved. Anyway, that is one part of it. Now, in passing, I would like to mention about the pulse and the blood pressure, because these are very common things. What is the pulse? All of you can feel your own pulse by putting the right hand here between the thumb and the index here. You're not doing that? Don't want to feel your pulse? Now you feel the pulse. As far as allopathic medicine is concerned, the pulse is just the transmission of the pressure wave along the artery caused by the cardiac output coming through the arteries. The heart left ventricle contracts, blood is ejected into the arterial system, that comes here. This is an elastic wall. So it opens temporarily and admits that extra volume, the pulsatile flow. That's why that is the pulse. Now, people have these 3 fingers there, normally these 3 fingers here, and I think there's a lot in Ayurveda where they study this and come up with a lot of conclusions about the person's condition like this. Unfortunately, allopathy does not have that system. That is as far as the pulse is concerned. And from this you can see. Another thing which I forgot to tell you is that in younger age, when you're born, your heart rate is about 140. And by the time you're 14, 15, it settles down to 70. Okay, so this is pulse. Then blood pressure. What is blood pressure? The easiest way to understand blood pressure is when you go around looking at the mali, watering with a hose. Sometimes there is a hole in that pipe. Have you seen? And then the water jumps up. Why does it jump up like that? Because of the pressure inside. Exactly that is what's happening in our body. Of course, if you want, you can puncture the artery and see. It'll spurt like that. It's up to you, because it spurts at 120 millimeters of mercury. So that's quite a lot. That comes to about 150 centimeters of water, 1.5 meters of water. So it can, that high it can spurt. If you cut the artery, that's how high it will spurt. If you cut the aorta, it will spurt even more. Okay. Of course, you won't live to tell the tale. That's a different matter. But that is the contained pressure within the blood vessel exerted by the volume inside on the walls is called blood pressure. Now, this blood pressure, you all have heard about high BP, high BP. The high BP is nothing but when the quality of the wall has deteriorated so that it is not complying, or for some reason or the other, the heart is pumping harder. There are some deposits inside the wall, and the heart is pumping harder and working harder without any issues there. Okay, all right. Sorry, I hope it's not upsetting you. Okay, so that is as far as blood pressure is concerned. There's one more thing which we can talk about. Oh my, one more thing we can talk about before we go on to what can go wrong with the heart, in which you're all much interested. So far, we're only talking about what is the heart. One more thing is the ECG. Heart is not merely a mechanical pump. It is an electromechanical pump under control of biological forces. It's an electromechanical pump, and the heart has got a proper system of wiring inside. This is the superior vena cava, this is the inferior vena cava, and they both enter the right atrium. And here is the right ventricle. This portion is the left ventricle. Only a small strip is seen from the front. This is how you all have seen the heart, isn't it? And this is the aorta, which comes from behind. Remember one thing, that in human anatomy, right is front, left is behind. So all this right atrium and right ventricle are in front, whereas the left ventricle and the left atrium are behind. This is the left atrium, this is the left ventricle, you can't see it. And then the aorta comes up there. And this is the pulmonary artery going up there, pulmonary artery. I should put it in blue. And you can see that somewhere between the left ventricle and right ventricle is the septum, or the wall between the two ventricles, interventricular septum. And same way there is an interatrial septum. Now somewhere here, there's a group of cells. This is called the pacemaker. Somewhere around the 7th or 8th month of intrauterine life, this pacemaker starts functioning on its own and continues functioning. That produces electrical impulses at the rate of 70 per minute, which can go up to whatever is required or come down when it's not required. In children, it is more. When you're exerting, it is more, and so on. When you get fever, it is more, all that. And this is the pacemaker. And from the pacemaker, there are some small strands which go to the ventricle, and they reach another place called the atrioventricular node, AV node. And from there, the heart has got the conducting right bundle and left bundle. And this is the complete conduction system. And this is an electrical impulse which travels to the heart, through the heart, from here to there. And as the electrical impulse travels through the atrium contracts. As the electrical impulse travels through the ventricle. And they contract in sequence. Atrium first, and then the ventricle. So this is recorded by, if you keep a sensor here, when the current is moving towards you, you'll get a positive wave. If you keep a sensor here, it is moving away from you, so you'll get a negative wave. So you keep sensors here, 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 you'll get different types of waves. From that, you can decipher the atrial activity, the ventricular activity, what are the problems there, how is the strength, the voltage of the waves tells you the strength of the contraction. Usually, because the electrical activity produces a proportionate mechanical activity. But sometimes there is an electromechanical dissociation. When the electrical activity is there, but the mechanical activity is not there. It's in terminal stages. So that's basically the ECG, and it's a very strong instrument for diagnosis. And this is the normal ECG, P, Q, R, S, T. P is atrial contraction, QRS is ventricular contraction, and T is repolarization. Again, another interesting thing. When the current goes through the heart, it gets depolarized. Within the next half second, it gets repolarized so that it's ready for the next impulse. So this depolarization, repolarization continuously happens throughout your life. So that's in short about the ECG. Now, let's go on to what can go wrong. The heart starts in our fetal life when we are still in the mother's womb as a single tube. And it undergoes various modifications till it becomes this. Of course, it's very tiny. A 5 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter embryo, you can see the heart beating. And so we are not 30 millimeter, we are 60 kilos, 65 kilos. So by the time it becomes a 4-chambered heart with a very complex system and all that. So such a complex development, it is said that during the intrauterine life, our heart, in fact, our whole body, goes through in concise form the entire evolutionary process. From a unicellular to multicellular to gill-breathing organism to, and then the moment of birth itself is a remarkable wonder, because till our birth, our lungs are not used. If you start using the lung when you are in your mother's womb, you will drown, because you are surrounded by liquor amniotic fluid. So nature has made such a system for all mammals that till they come out, they do not breathe. The mother breathes for them through the placenta. And when they come out, the first noise they make is not that they're having any emotional significance. It is just opening up their lungs with that first cry. Why everybody from a grandmother to a midwife to a gynecologist to the father waiting outside waits for that first cry? Because that shows the child's lungs have started functioning. That bawling of the first few breaths opens up the lungs. It's a marvelous thing. If you read about it, again, you will say the wonder that is the human heart. You know, it is functioning without a lung a minute ago. Now it is functioning with a lung. What a beautiful transition. I don't think anybody else can make such a beautiful transition. Anyway, coming back to that. So it's a wonder that about 1% of the hearts do develop defects. And even among that 1%, remember when I say 1% develop defects, what does it mean? 99% are all right. So that's a very high quality control, isn't it? Out of 100, 99 are okay. 1%. And out of that 1% also, 90% are very easily correctable. Simple holes in the heart. Other 10% are complicated, which requires. And all these can be done either by cardiologist or by a cardiac surgeon. These things can be repaired. So we'll not go into that. That is as far as including the hole in the heart, the blue baby, and all. The second group is valvular heart disease. Valvular heart disease is a rheumatic heart disease, which is quite common in our country, which affects more of the poor people. It was rampant in Western countries when the standard of living improved. It is due to an autoimmune disease, and this autoimmune disease is promoted by streptococcal throat infection, and that streptococcal throat infection is more common among the poorer parts of the community where there is overcrowding and all that. And so we still have a fair amount of rheumatic heart disease, as very succinctly put by a very famous pathologist. Rheumatic fever licks the joints and bites the heart. It produces pain in the joint and swelling and all. That's a minor problem. It's only a lick. But the real bite is when it affects the heart valve. And every day we see heart valves are affected, 1 or 2 valves, sometimes 3 valves. And these can come down in incidence when our standard of living goes up and our prompt treatment of sore throats in children and all goes up, and proper surveillance and all that. Otherwise, we have to deal with a fair amount of valvular heart disease. And the most important today, most important for a very funny reason, is the coronary artery. All this time we were talking about the heart is supplying blood to all parts of the body. But nobody ever stopped to think, does heart need blood? Does it? Yes, it does. It takes a great fraction of the blood supply. It's only 0.35% of the body weight, but it takes 5% of the cardiac output. The brain is only 2% of the body weight. It takes 20% of the cardiac. These are all hard-working, high-stress workers, so they need, it's like the CEO and the COO getting a very fat salary compared to other workers like the bones, the joints and all that. You can't crib, because if they have to produce that output, they have to have that much of oxygen. If they want to have that much of oxygen, so the heart is supplied by the coronary arteries. The coronary arteries are themselves a great wonder. The coronary arteries are the first arteries. Very selfish, no? Like mother keeping food for herself first. No mother will do that, but the heart has to do that, because there is one artery here, one artery here. This is the left, this is the right. And this right coronary artery divides into two. One goes along the edge like this, other goes around the heart. And the right one comes like this and comes here. So it gives the idea of a crown, if you turn it around, like a crown. That's why they're called coronary arteries. And the right and the left, but the left is considered as equal to 2. Some people are more important, can't help it, because the left ventricle requires more oxygen. It's working at 120 pressure, you remember? And it has pumped blood much farther away. So that gets 2 arteries, left anterior descending and the circumflex artery. This gets the right. And it is these arteries which supply blood to the heart. And when do they supply blood to the heart? When it is contracting, is it possible? No. Because when it is contracting, no blood can get in, no? So while the rest of the body gets blood when the heart contracts, the coronaries get blood only when the heart relaxes. What a beautiful system. Now when it relaxes, that time blood flows. The blood flow is 5% here, 20% to the brain, because of the oxygen demand. And the oxygen demand is because of the work they do. So no cribbing about that. So 5% for 0.25% or 0.3% of body weight, and 20% for 2% of the body weight, and the rest is distributed among the riffraff. So they're not riffraff, as you rightly said. My friend, I didn't get your name. What's your name? Kumar. Uman. Sorry, I can't get it. Umar. Oh, Umar. Umar is easy to remember. So like Umar said, all parts of the body are important. Kidney is important. Liver is important. Skin is important. Bones are important. Muscles are important. Without that, you cannot be functioning. But relative importance. The brain is supreme. And the next is the heart. because these two are vital. Brain decides whether you are alive or not, and heart makes sure that the brain gets the blood. So if this is blocked, you get into a problem called ischemic coronary artery disease. And this block can take various forms, can be a partial block, it can be a complete block, it can be a multiple blocks, it can be a block in the main artery, or it can be a block on the right artery. And when the right artery and these two branches of the left artery, all three are affected, we call it triple vessel disease. And if this is affected, we call it left main disease. And this is affected, we call it LAD, left anterior descending disease. This is left main, and this is circumflex, and this is right coronary artery. So triple bypass means all three are blocked and they are trying to bypass or do angioplasty. Why does it get blocked? A deposit of atheromatous material occurs in these arteries called atherosclerosis. And this atheromatous material is the one which causes the block. And it is gradual. There is another wisdom of the body, which is also foolishness of the body, I can say. The wisdom of the body is when the blood supply is compromised, body compensates. ठीक है, मैं manage कर लूँगा. That kind of thing goes on till a stage comes when they can no longer manage. By the time it's too late. That's how people drop dead. They drop dead because the body is trying to compensate. The wisdom of the body has so much result. Same thing applies to the kidney. Till 90% of your kidney is compromised, you're okay. It's only when it goes beyond that 90%, then you start having problems. Same with your liver. I don't know what the brain. I don't think we can compromise the brain function by 90% and still go around. Though you may feel some of us are like that still. Anyway, so the point is that these blocks are caused by atheroma. And what is done is we produce an alternative channel. Another artery, we take it, put it beyond the block. So what you have done is to bypass the block. You must have seen when you're traveling by ST bus. You're going on the ST bus and you find that the road is under repair or blocked. So you take a bypass. Haven't you seen that? Take diversion. So this is exactly what is happening here. The diversion. So that blood avoids this, bypasses this block and supplies the artery beyond that. So far, so good. Only one problem is there, that the basic problem of atherosclerosis is not solved. It is still there. All that you have done is you bypassed. So we call, and the same thing, instead of bypass, you can do an angioplasty. An angioplasty, you put a balloon through this and dilate it so that the block is open. And then to see that it doesn't collapse again, you put a stent. A stent will be like that over the block. But the block can develop here. The block can develop anywhere else because the basic disease process, the basic pathology has not been addressed. You address it, you'll get a Nobel Prize because it can solve such a large amount of problems. Today, the commonest operation across the board is bypass or angioplasty, with or without stenting. So that is one of them. And of course, when things go beyond, when the electrical system fails, we have a pacemaker. When the whole heart fails, then you have a heart transplant. So these are all great advances which take place. I should stop here because we should have enough time for questions. I think I've already exceeded my planned time. I wanted to finish in 1 hour. taken more. So please ask questions, and please feel free to ask questions. I know a lot of questions must be in your mind. If there are no questions, I'm going to ask questions.
Development of collateral circulations lifestyle changes and
100%. Even in this operation, what people have found is when they have done angiography to study the nature of the arteries, say 5 years after the operation, patient is fine. Just for research purposes, they've done angiography. It's all completely blocked. Even the bypass is blocked, but they've developed collateral. And collateral circulation is what is developed by exercise, diet control, and improving the lifestyle, avoiding stress, and so on. So that is how sometimes we do an angiography. A perfectly normal person, for some minor indication, do an angiography. You find all 3 arteries are blocked, but the fellow is fine. How is he living? He's living because of collateral. So collaterals is a very effective system by nature to produce alternative pathways. This is an alternative path. But the collaterals which body develops are multiple capillary level, small vessel level pathways, so that it's unlike this, which is dependent on a single vessel. You have multiple vessels supplying it. It's a very good thing, and it is known that you develop collaterals when you increase the oxygen demand, and you increase the oxygen demand by exercise.
So can you please throw some light on how CPR works?
How? You see, CPR revolves around one basic fact, that the brain cannot withstand hypoxia for more than 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, for 3 minutes, if your brain does not receive oxygen, either by being throttled or being hanged or losing blood or the heart stopping to function or electrocution, whatever may be the mode of stopping the oxygen supply to the blood, the brain cannot tolerate more than 3 minutes of anoxia. I won't call it hypoxia, anoxia. No oxygen for 3 minutes, khatam, khalas, finished. Nothing can be done. And the heart, on the other hand, can be revived. We have revived hearts even after 1 hour. It has refused to function. We have done various other things and it comes back. One of my teachers used to say, all of you must have realized by now that all that we talked about, the seat of emotion, love, and all that is nothing. As far as we know, we have cut open the heart so many times, we find nothing, no love chamber there, nothing. It is just a pump. Sorry for being very, very disappointing in my statement. But what I am trying to say is that the heart, on the other hand, can be coaxed back to life by electrical stimulation, even by cardiac massage. When we are operating, suddenly the heart stops. So we notice it, and the anesthetist starts increasing the oxygen, and we start squeezing the heart. That's called internal cardiac massage. So by this, you are maintaining the circulation till such time the heart picks up. Sometimes, as I told you, the heart also needs blood. So with this, the heart also gets the blood. When the heart gets the blood, it says, all right, yeah, let me start. It does happen. And then it takes off, galloping like a horse. We are wondering, we have given up everything and we're saying, kya ho raha hai? Suddenly it starts with medication, with oxygen, his own luck, all that. It starts off. By that time, if the brain has not been supplied with oxygen, no use. Then you have a brain dead patient. That is the basis of cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation is recognizing cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest is sudden stoppage of heart due to whatever reason. It can be drowning accident, it can be electrocution, it can be a heart attack. Heart attack means coronary artery disease. But you must be able to diagnose, yes, this chap's heart has stopped. And first thing you do is come here. Sometimes it starts. You know, like an old car, doesn't start, you give it a kick, it starts. So like that, you give a thump, it may start. Okay? And if it doesn't, then you start massaging. External cardiac massage, it's a very hard job. You have to kneel by the side of the patient, put him on a hard surface, and then start massaging the heart so that you compress the sternum against the vertebrae, the heart gets squeezed, and enough blood goes to the brain. Our aim is to keep the brain alive. In the meantime, all the other things are tried, you know, electrical shock, medicines, oxygen, so many other tricks in the bag are tried to see whether the heart will come back. If the heart comes back, then immediately we check, are the pupils all right? Pupils show you whether the brain is all right or not. If the pupils are dilated, means he's gone. So then you have a situation where the heart is functioning. My teacher used to call it, heart is a shameless organ. You beat it, you inject it, you cut it, you stitch it, still it works. The brain does not do that. You insult it for 3 minutes, it says, bye-bye. No more. I'll find some other place. That's it. So that's the basis of CPR, to recognize a cardiac arrest and restore cerebral circulation within 3 minutes, as early as possible, at least within 3 minutes. One way you can delay the brain death is to freeze the whole person. Suppose person falls into cold water. He gets a cardiac arrest and the brain also is arrested, doesn't function. You take him out after half an hour, it has happened. And they rewarm the fellow and he is fine because the brain also has been protected by this hypothermia. Heart is also, the whole body is protected by hypothermia. Any other question? Only 2 questions from me. Yes, Umar.
Certain emotions can be included in a form that the heart.
I couldn't follow him at all. Can somebody help me?
Saying that there is neurogenic tissue in the heart.
Let me come near you. Yeah.
I'm saying that there is neurogenic tissue in the heart.
Yeah.
There is neurogenic tissue.
Pardon?
There is encoding of certain data.
Okay.
So as well as we know in the heart there are ANF sensors and the H2 sensors, the H2 hyper, all that stuff. So even certain emotions can be encoded in these kind of
100%. 100%.
So the heart must retain memory as
Yes, it doesn't retain memory. It reacts to the memory here. It reacts to the memory here, and that memory can trigger off the reaction here. I'll give you a very interesting experiment done by a Nobel laureate. Very interesting experiment. All of you will be shocked to hear this experiment. The connection between the heart and the brain. I didn't mean any derogatory way that the heart is a servant. It is a servant, but it is a servant which is affected by the master. If the master is angry, it beats faster. The master is calm and cool. If he goes into dhyana yoga and samadhi, it comes down. How does it happen? It is all happening mediated through the brain. There is no question about heart and brain not being connected. How does stress cause heart attack? Because of stress affects the brain. but the affected brain affects the heart. So brain is the producing the stress, and the heart is the one of the victims. One experiment which they did was, they did this on monkeys. They took monkeys, trained them, and one of the monkeys had a mate. This is repeated many times. Leonard Brown is the name of the Nobel laureate. He has worked out the connection between the brain and the heart. So you see, a dog, when it is hungry, give it food, it eats food. Now you starve a dog, have food, and keep it beyond its reach. Keep it on a leash. What is the reaction? It is under stress. So he wanted to produce a stress model and measure the stress produced under different situations. So when he took the monkeys, he found that when the monkey was restrained and not allowed to meet his mate, the stress level was high. But it hit a maximum when another monkey was allowed access to that mate. Do you understand? So it did affect the heart. It affects the heart. Emotion affects the heart. My point, the point that I was trying to make is, emotion is not here. Emotion is here, but this emotion affects this. This is a sufferer of the emotion. But the emotion is by, for example, if there is a situation where, very famous example given again, suppose you are going on a river in a boat, and there is another boat coming in front of you, and that hits against you, an empty boat. Is there any reaction? No, it's an empty boat by mistake. Suppose there were 4 chaps in that boat. What will happen? So it is a reaction. So the heart reacts to the emotion, is not the seat of emotion as per the present state of knowledge. Whatever scientists say, it is in the present state of knowledge. Tomorrow you bring some other evidence, you change it. No problem. Because that is the beauty of science. Science is not dogmatic. It says, if you say that this is not so. But as of now, the seat of emotion is considered to be the brain. Not the ultimate answer. There are lots of problems there also. Mind, intellect, memory, imagination, all these things. There are a lot of things which have not understood. But it is very well known that, otherwise, for example, if heart were to be the seat of emotion, I get a heart transplant, I will go straight for the girlfriend of that fellow. If this were the seat of emotion, it is not. But if you do the brain transplant, yes, that will happen. Okay. I hope I have answered your question. Neural connection is there, but there is no effect of cause of problems from the heart. It's only the effects. Any other question? Yes, please read out.
Why does silent heart attack occur in diabetic people?
Yeah, that is because the process is slower. I hope they're hearing the answer.
Yes.
The process is slower and affects smaller vessels. So it is not so obvious as affecting a big vessel. To give an example, I'll say, if a major road is blocked, it causes immediate confusion in the traffic. That's what happens when a major artery is blocked. But diabetes mainly affects smaller vessels. So it is more gradual and causes less symptoms. Also, there is a certain amount of diabetic neuropathy. Means the nerves are not as sharp in a diabetic patient, advanced diabetic patient, as ours. Ultimately, pain is conveyed by nerves. And if these nerves are not very healthy, then you don't get the signal. Yeah, any other question? So in a diabetic, we have to be very careful. You have to look for the coronary problem, not wait for him to complain.
So the next question is, in the heart transplant, we become mechanical for heart for getting longer life.
At the moment, it's a highly hypothetical consideration because I told you, even the best mechanical heart cannot come anywhere near the natural heart for the reasons that I already explained, that amount of flexibility, that amount of indefatigability. There is one more thing, it repairs itself. It is now found that the heart repairs itself while still working. So that is why, yes, it is theoretical possibility. It has been estimated that even now there are very, very expensive artificial hearts. They're very cumbersome. They're getting smaller and smaller, but they still have a lot of problems. They have problems as to using the conduit, anticoagulants, mechanical failure, electrical failure, infection. So many problems are there. Nothing is there with a natural heart. That's why heart transplant. Only reason heart transplantation may not be available. So you have to look for alternatives. Because you cannot get so many hearts of brain dead people. You wanted to say.
Not a complete replace with heart, but the right or left, one of the
I didn't get him again. So I'll have to come nearer, or you have to come here. You come here and tell me here. I want to learn also. Come.
I just wanted to inform about a case that there was a paper which showed that if 3D printed parts of a ventricle, I don't properly remember.
Yeah, okay.
They replaced because there was some myosynec vomit or something, and they replaced it by stem. Because they printed stem cell the matrix, and they differentiated the cells in those cardiac cells that matrix. It's the heart. It's kind of a grafting for that.
They have reinforced the heart. They have not replaced the heart.
So not replaced.
This is a well-known experiment. That's partly this answer can be added, that with stem cells injected into cardiocyte program, myocardial cell programmed stem cells. Stem cells which can be programmed to become, so you inject them into the affected part of the heart, then they may produce new heart tissue which can function. That's a possibility. But a purely mechanical heart replacing human heart is a far cry. Nothing is beyond possibility, but it comes with problems. The problems sometimes are more than the solution. Even a heart valve, which has been going around for the last 70 years, still there are problems with the heart valve operations. Any other question?
Yes. Samita Jadhav is asking, collaterals affect the contraction of the heart apart from angiogram, any other test that can detect mismatch?
Yeah, answer to the first question, collaterals cannot get affected by contraction of the heart because collateral is a natural mechanism. And natural mechanism always takes care of the local situation. We have collaterals in so many parts of the body. It's not only the heart. And in fact, the heart is not so blessed with collaterals like some other places. So collaterals will not be affected by contraction. The second question is?
Apart from angiogram, any other test?
No, it cannot be. But as we said, angiogram is a geographic picture of the arteries or blood vessels. But what we are interested is not in the geography, we are interested in the function. So if the function has improved, other things don't matter. You don't even have to dig into it. You see, don't fix what is working. So, so the question is, is it working? That is the question you have to ask. Okay.
There is another question. They're asking, can you please explain a bit about the
What cardiomyopathy? There are many types of cardiomyopathy. Doesn't matter. Takotsubo. I've never heard of it. I'm sorry. I'll have to read up. I do not know. That is the answer for that question. Yes? What are the various? For cardiac health. Very simple. Keep your weight under control by exercise and diet. Khatam. Don't smoke. Oh, that's a very big topic. I think another club meeting we'll have to have. Exercise and diet are very important. And what diet and what exercise we have to. I would say, since you've asked me the question, I should not disappoint you. A person like you should be exercising 45 minutes every day, 6 days a week. And you should not eat more than 1,500 calories, which means you have to watch what you're eating, especially carbohydrates. You should reduce. We all eat too much carbohydrates in the form of sweets and rice and chapatis. Coarse grains are very good. That's why I recommend bakri to all my patients. Say that I have bakri at lunch and at dinner. That's very good. It has got more roughage and it has got a low glycemic index and it has got low calories compared to rice, especially white rice, which everybody is fond of, is like poison. It has got a high glycemic index. It goes straight, gets converted to fat. And in India, this fat, for both men and women, what we call as truncal obesity, is more dangerous. And that's a very real problem because here people may not put on weight, but when they put on weight, they start doing this. A spare tire here. That is dangerous because it's associated with heart disease. So that is the basics. But then it just, there's no point in talking about it. It's a matter for doing, not for talking. So exercise and diet both to keep the weight under control, no smoking, and keep the mind calm by whatever way you want. Yoga can achieve both control of the exercise as well as the control of the mind can be achieved by yoga. There are various other ways, depends on what you want. But the bottom line is, go out and do something rather than just saying what we should do, what we should do, what we should do. Yeah? Do cycling, basketball, football, swimming, running, jogging. Do something. That's what is the basic message for preventing heart attacks. Prevention of heart attack is so much more economical. Controlling the weight with diet and exercise is the best life insurance anybody can take. Pardon? Yeah? I didn't get you. Yes, of course, because it is de-stressing. Laughter, not of the villain type, but harmless mirth and, good bonhomie. All these things which are de-stressing are good for the heart. That's what that experiment showed. Stress stresses the heart. So de-stress keeps you calm. Yes.
One more question from Saida. She's asking why male of death is more than the female ratio in terms of heart disease.
I knew that only heart disease will be attracting their attention. I knew that, that's why. Yes, because the females enjoy a certain protection up to menopause because of estrogen. See, they have monthly estrogen cycle. Their estrogen level is higher, that's why they are women. And up to the time they have menopause, they have a lower level of heart attacks and heart disease. After that, same. After menopause, there is no difference because after menopause, there is no estrogen to give them protection. So you may think, why not give estrogen to men? To protect them from, they will not remain men then. So that's the problem. Okay. Yes, your question. What can be there? Madam, the jury is still out. They do not know the answer. They are now finding out that after COVID, the number of, especially people who have received vaccination, the number of the incidence of coronary artery disease has increased among them 2 or 3 times more than the other population, which is not much, but in absolute numbers. But, proportion wise, it is more. Why it has happened, they're trying to figure out. They still don't know. So that's one area where you can research. But this COVID virus is very clever, no? It doesn't stay quiet. So keeps on changing itself and keeps dancing in front of you. You can't catch it. By the time you catch it, it has changed its. So I'm told there is more than 300 variants of this virus. Soumya Swaminathan wrote in yesterday's Hindu that so many variants are there. So each one of them will have their own character. Which one is affecting the heart? We do not know. But right now, in England, in a small series, they have analyzed, in Lancet it has come, that there is a higher incidence of heart disease among those who had vaccination, not so much among those who had COVID. So there is a matter to think about, I think. That's why I said there's still a lot. Nobody has asked me, why does this occur? Atherosclerosis. Nobody knows. Can't you find a medicine, you take one injection, all the arteries? And atherosclerosis does not affect only the coronary, it affects the carotids, it affects the peripheral arteries. If it affects the peripheral arteries, you get gangrene. If it affects the carotids, you get a stroke. If you get the coronaries in the coronaries, you get a heart attack. Why don't you find an injection, you just give an injection, all the arteries are cleared like this. And then say, go home now. Your arteries are fine, as good as new. No, we don't know. There is a lining of the artery called endothelium. The endothelium has not been understood fully. More you research the endothelium, more things are coming out of the endothelium. How it dilates the vessel, how it constricts the vessel, what chemical changes take place. And so there is still a lot more. As I said, wheel after wheel, we search for the truth. Wheel after the wheel, the truth is behind. So we have to keep working on it. Any other? Yes, please.
So what is your take on statins?
On statins, the present state of knowledge says statins are very useful in secondary prevention, not so much in primary prevention. Primary prevention means I have got high cholesterol and I have no other problem. I have no heart disease, no coronary carotid atherosclerosis, no this thing. So there it doesn't help. But if I had a heart attack and my cholesterol is high, then statins are helpful in preventing further harm. There is benefit, but giving statins right and left, no use. It's like, sledgehammer to lower the cholesterol without knowing why the cholesterol has gone up. So again, these are just like bypass. It's a symptomatic, palliative kind of answer. It is not the complete answer.
The next question is, what is the direction of research in cardiology? Tell it, right, the biology.
Future direction of
Research in cardiology.
research in cardiology. Oh my God, tremendous. Tremendous. For example, how to generate, where is Umar? He's gone away. So, how to generate heart cells. Suppose you are able to generate new heart cells like they have done now. All that you have to do is make a hole in the heart, inject there these cells, they will grow, they will behave like normal heart cells. That's one. Second, what does the endothelium do? 3, how to control atherosclerosis. 4, how to improve collateral circulation. 5, how does exercise and diet protect the heart? Hundreds of things are unanswered. So the scope for research is tremendous. Any other question? Yes? Cardiology and yoga. Oh, yes, there is a tremendous amount of research. For example, has anybody taken a population, divide them into 2 groups, ideally college students, make one group do supervised yoga for 40 minutes every day, other group, no, nothing. And at the end of 6 months, study their parameters. How is their pulse rate? How is their blood pressure? How is the history of their, how is their respiratory reserve? How is their cardiopulmonary reserve as determined by walk on the treadmill? And is there any biochemical change? What do their immunoglobulins say? Tremendous. Tremendous amount of, nobody has done that. Do yoga, it's good for you. Yes, we all know that by practice, but prove it. Then whole world will follow it. Already world is following it because it's good. But if you prove it, it's better. So there is a lot more. For example, we're talking only about the heart. What about the lung diseases? How much can pranayam help in lung diseases? What are the different respiratory parameters like FEV1, FEV2, vital capacity, all that with pranayam for 6 months? Without pranayam, in normal people, in diseased people, do normal people benefit more? Do diseased people benefit more? Can diseased people do worse with this? Tremendous, tremendous amount. Okay, simple thing, incidence of common cold with yoga and without yoga. How many episodes? Every one of us gets 1 or 2 episodes of viral fever and common cold in a year. We don't even make a note of it. You can start a project where everybody notes it and the control group should be doing yoga and you should see. If there is a significant difference, you can tell the world with confidence. You do yoga, you will get much less common cold, much less viral fever because your immune system improves. Immune system improves with yoga. How? Prove it. You may be speaking the truth, sir, but I want to see the proof. Isn't it? So that's the yoga and science, tremendous opportunities for research. Endless opportunities. Any more? Okay. Okay then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful lecture. Taught us what a wonderful organ the heart is. Learned it is unsteady, self-propellant, and never speaks for itself, works tirelessly. With that, we would like to call up.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.